Oh, Tangy, do you want to watch me build your balanced raw meals for this week? Alright, well let's go. Okay, here is how I set up my little meal prep station. I've got my trusty cutting board and knife for chopping meats and bones into bite-sized pieces, my scale for weighing out each meat, Tangy's prep containers which hold his full day's worth of food, and of course the meats. Some days I prep out a few weeks out, but today I'm just going to do a simple 7-day prep. I often create balanced recipes after shopping because I don't always know what I'm going to find. But since I have a lot of leftover meat from my dog's meal prep, I just looked at what I had in my chest freezer, then made a balanced recipe from that. Alright, let's start building these raw kitty meals. I'll explain the entire process as I go through it. I'm starting out by setting all of his containers out so I can easily drop in each meat as I go. I usually like to start out with a meaty bone. For this recipe, I'm swapping between chicken necks and duck tongue. Did you know that duck tongues have a small bone that runs through it? Weird, right? These make for a fun meaty bone for cats and ferrets. The only downside to duck tongue is that there isn't any nutrition data on it, nor is there an estimate on its bone percentage. So when I formulate these recipes, I do guesstimate with the tongues. Since there is nutrition data on the chicken necks, I'll be alternating with them to make sure that Tangy's getting enough calcium. The next meat I'll be adding in is the secreting organ meat, liver. For this recipe, I'm feeding beef liver. Most of the time I feed beef, veal, goat, or lamb liver because they're a lot higher in copper than poultry liver. I'm pretty lucky when it comes to Tangy because many owners have trouble getting their cats to eat their organ meat, but Tangy adores it. Next, I'm going to add a second secreting organ meat, and for this recipe I'm using beef spleen. Spleen has an insanely strong smell, and that's because of all of the iron it contains. Spleen is the ideal secreting organ meat for kitties because they have a pretty high requirement for iron. Now I'm going to add in a few muscular organs. The first one is turkey hearts. When making cat meals, I usually include heart no matter what because they boost the taurine in the diet. Taurine is found in basically all animal meat, but if fish, tongue, or heart aren't included in the meal, taurine may be a bit too low. The next muscular organ I'll be adding is beef green tripe. Uncleaned green tripe can be gross and smelly, but Tangy is in love with it, and it's also full of beneficial nutrients like iron and manganese. Now onto the bulk of this meal's protein and fat, muscle meat. First up is pork chops. Pork can be fatty, which is good for cats since they have a high fat requirement. Pork loin is one of Tangy's favorite cuts, and that's a plus for me because it has so much nutritional value. I knew it was only a matter of time before Tangy came over here. I told you he liked liver. Now onto the next muscle meat, beef cubes. I try to have at least one red muscle meat in Tangy's meal because they're higher in essential nutrients like zinc, iron, and B vitamins. These little chunks are the perfect size for Tangy. Alright, now this is a great base and loaded with nutrients, but there are still 6 nutrients that are low. So let's take a look at what I need to balance this recipe. First is mackerel for omega-3s and vitamin D. I usually alternate between mackerel and salmon because out of all of the safe oily fish that you can feed, these two have the highest amount of vitamin D. And then the final 4 nutrients will actually be added at mealtime because some don't do well being exposed to air. As for these leftover meats, I'll be saving them for Matsu and Choji's meal prep. Now, Tangy doesn't eat his full day's worth of food all at once. I usually split it into 3 feedings. Alright Tangy, are you ready for breakfast? This is where I add the final additions. First up is vitamin E oil for vitamin E, then a tiny bit of zinc picolinate because zinc is still slightly low in this recipe, a bit of kelp for iodine, and then a dash of nutritional yeast powder to boost the folic acid. Let's see if Tangy likes this recipe. If you're wondering how to make a balanced meal like this, I do have a free cheat sheet on my website that goes over everything that I'm feeding in this video, as well as the nutrients cats need in their diet. This will be a great tool to reference when meal prepping yourself. The link will be in the description.